All right, what's up, everybody? We are live. It is book launch day. It's actually happened after long years. It is finally here. Thank you so much to those of you who've already picked up the book and supported it. It is doing mighty well so far. So, very grateful for all of the support. And I just wanted to take a moment here in this hour to thank you. I was sick last week and I had all these things prepared. I had a lot more videos prepared. I wanted to get balloons and kind of celebrate in a much bigger way. But, what's most important is that you're here and the book is out there and it's doing its thing. And just thank you so much. This is, some of you might know that I've been an author for a while. Some of you might not even have known that until recently. And man, it's been a journey. So I'm happy to talk about it, uncover some fun stories behind it, and just kind of share kind of anything I can think of to just help you on your learning journey too. And I see a lot of familiar faces here as well. Gonzo gifting 5 Pat Flynn memberships. I almost said Deep Pocket Monster memberships. But thank you. And this is yeah, this is incredible. Thank you so much. I don't even know what to say. I don't have a presentation or anything like that, but I do want to take some time to answer questions as well. And maybe I'll start with where the idea for this book came from. Um, this book proposal was crafted in 2021. And that's when it then started a bidding war across various publishers because they were so interested in the idea. And I was sort of thinking ahead at the future and what would be most helpful because I've published entrepreneurship books before. I've published books that I think are sort of fundamental for the idea of starting a business and learning where to target your efforts and how to test a business idea before you launch it, how to build super fans. And a lot of you know that I don't just write the books about those things, I actually put those things in action. Ever since Superfans was published, that was before the Pokemon channel came out, and I have then implemented those things. But over the years, I started to get a lot of people asking me questions about Pat, like, how do you, everything you attempt to do, you seem to do very well. You somehow find a way, even if you've never done it before, to learn your way into it rather quickly and find some success there in one way, shape, or form. And you do it across multiple different disciplines, from an invention to sports to language to business and YouTube and short form, long form, all the things. And it's not because I'm special. It's not because I'm a genius. Definitely not that. Um, and, maybe there is a little luck involved, but I mean, it keeps happening. And I wanted to figure out if there was a reason why. And I found that compared to several other people, especially with how noisy and how overwhelming things are, I found a framework, and I've always kind of done this, but the book itself and having the proposal out there and the deadline to write the manuscript forced me to uncover really what was it and create frameworks and strategies and tactics around all of that. So that's really what lean learning is. It's a way to achieve more by learning less, because here's what I discovered. The amount of information that is getting put in front of us is not slowing down. In fact, it's continually accelerating. There's so much of it. And I think we all know this now. However, we have been treating, and I for a long time had been treating information like it's a scarce food source. Um, like back in caveman days, right? If you found a food source like a carcass or some sort of fruit bush or something, like, you hoard it. You take as much as you can because you don't know if you'll ever find another food source for a while, right? And we have been treating information like that for so long because information was scarce, right? If you were the smartest kid in the class because you could recall the most information, you were going to be more successful, right? Knowledge is power. If you had an Encyclopedia Britannica in your home, you were seen as smarter because you had access to information other people couldn't get access to. But times have changed, and we know this, we feel this, yet we continue to consume, there's a food analogy again, information as if we needed it all the time, even if we didn't need it right now. It's this idea of just in case information, which is what we've been doing, and just in time information, which is where we need to go. And that's really what this book is about how to find the right information at the right time for the right purpose versus let's just kind of hoard everything. I was talking about this earlier with somebody. Have you ever heard of the idea of like shower thoughts? Like, a lot of our best ideas and inspirations come in the shower. Why? Because we literally can't do anything else but just be in there and have time to think to ourselves. But What are we doing instead outside of the shower? We're putting every single moment of time as a time to consume something, right? You're in the car, you're absorbing a podcast, you're washing the dishes, you're listening to an audiobook, you're watching YouTube videos about this and then that. And because we're at this buffet line of information now, we're all overwhelmed. We're all obese and with information. We're all lethargic, right? We're foggy because of it all. And not only are we putting our plates full at this buffet line of information that we have, we're getting force fed. All these platforms that we're on, including the one that we're on right now, YouTube, is sending you stuff. When you go to the homepage, you are presented with the most delicious dishes of information, with the best garnish of a YouTube thumbnail and the sort of heartiness of whatever it is that title promises. And we eat it up. And for my kids, for all of you, for my students, and even for myself, there needed to be something that started the conversation around a new way of consuming, a new way of learning, like a diet, leaning out our intake, but not just removing distractions, not just saying no to things, but also leaning into the things we say yes to. So this is what this is about. Jari Glitcher, no, this is not pre-recorded, and hopefully that proved that. Round 2, April is here. April 2.0. Big day. Yes, big day. Also, congrats to the Deep Pocket Monster team. Our video that was published yesterday and premiered is now trending number 13 in all of YouTube, which is pretty cool. How did we learn how to do that? It was not through going to school. It was not through reading a bunch of books. It was by doing and learning and implementing and making mistakes and finding the right resources at the right time. In fact, Dan on our team is here from the Deep Pocket Monster channel. You can see him in the chat right now. He is somebody who has been deep diving into the world of storytelling. So every time I see him, he has books that are literally just about storytelling, but not even just about storytelling, about plot twists, about, you know, little things like that, right? That's what I like to call micro mastery, taking this big thing that you're working on, like YouTube, and focusing it on, okay, how do I get better at storytelling? Because that's kind of like a first domino that can knock over all the rest of the dominoes. But even beyond that, like within storytelling, what are there different components of? There's capturing the attention up front. There's holding people's time and attention throughout the video, retention. There is, you know, the emotional connections. There's the plot twist. There are, you know, the all those things, right? So you'll read about micromastery in the book, and when you get to that point, it is something that's probably the most applicable thing that you could do right now, other than some of the more mindset-related stuff in the beginning of the book. Silent Nate asks, why is it called lean learning? Well, I thought it was a cool name because it has the double L alliteration. Lean is a term that is often used in software development, in startup world, and entrepreneurship land when it comes to agile creation of things, which means like faster iterations and learning by making mistakes, that sort of thing. But also lean has that connotation of, you know, like fit. Like when you're lean, when your body is lean, it has like less fat, right? You are lighter. You're more nimble. You're more flexible. You're quick, right? And then the idea of leaning into the things that you're doing, right? When you lean into something, you're going deeper with it as well. And yeah, Vincent, the idea of without burnout, and I mean that's important here too, because we can burn out just simply by learning too much, right? We almost get over inspired. That's an important part of the book. That I call them junk sparks, right? We get super excited about something really quick, and we add it to our list of things we want to do, and that again takes our time away from the things we've already said yes to that we should be committed. Vincent says, "Hey Pat, I'm Steve. I'm doing a Pokemon card trade-up challenge to fund accessibility for my disabled son. It's growing fast, but there's so much to learn. What advice from lean learning would help me scale?" So number one, I would look to see who else has done something similar. And it could be either the trade-up challenge component of it or the fundraising component of it. And a lot of times we look at too many resources when we try to discover how to do something, right? So it's finding the right champions or mentors or accountability partner. There is a chapter in the book specifically about what I like to call your champions, people who will kind of rise up to support you. And there's 3 different levels of champions in our lives. We have the emotional champions. These are our friends and family. They might not understand exactly what we're doing or the same language and kind of understand what we're up to. Then you have your colleagues and peers. Those are really important to connect with because they can often see a lot of things that you can't see, but they understand it because they're in it with you, right? Who else is raising funds and doing fundraisers and stuff? And what other organizations out there? And then finally, you have your mentors, the people who will hold you accountable. They are rooting for you. They're going to be brutally honest with you along the way. And so I would try to see if I could connect with anybody else who might be going through something similar, Vincent, to try to find, or Steve, to get your way there. Lean learning also includes a strategy more toward the end of the book called the Power Tens. And I'll tell you what this is, and I'll share this story with you, even though it's not going to spoil anything. You'll just hear it again, and then where do we order the book? Thank you, Chris. The best place to support would be through Amazon, and if you get the physical book, that's going to give us the best shot at New York Times list. And the list isn't the most important thing, but it is something that I do want. I'm not going to lie to you. So a physical book on Amazon would be best, and then that would enable you to leave a review once you finish. And I would love an honest review from all of you, if that's possible. To go back to just learned about junk sparks. Nice, amazing, Scoob. Power tens. So this takes us back to my rowing career. I used to row at Cal. I was on the Cal lightweight squad. And, you're in a boat of 8 people and then a 9th person who's usually the lightest person. They're called the coxswain. They're commanding the 8 rowers on this boat. And it's very similar to, it's crew. That's what it's called. And you normally see this in Ivy League schools and those kinds of things. But Cal is a big competitor. In fact, their heavyweight squad crew is world renowned. They're made up of Olympic rowers and the like, and I'm definitely not a heavyweight, as you can tell. But when you're in a race, or regatta as they call it, it's really fun and interesting, and there's a lot of psychology in it. And of course, you're trying to row faster than the other boats, but if you give it all your power up front, you're going to slow down midway through, almost like sprinting through a marathon. And these races aren't quick either. They are fast, but they last a long time. So energy management is really key. In order to speed ahead against a boat that's next to you and gain a lot of ground in a short period of time, the coxswain will initiate what's called a power 10. And it starts like this. They have like a little microphone. They'll let the rowers know, all right, power 10 in 3, stroke, 2, stroke, 1, stroke, go. And for 10 strokes, and just 10 strokes alone, they will do 10 really hard, more than normal at their normal pace pull, like almost giving it all for 10, just 10 strokes. It's possible because it's just 10 strokes. But if they did that the rest of the way through, they would, pass out. If they never did that, the other boats would pull ahead. But when you see a boat initiating a power 10, it's like a hot knife through butter. It is actually insane. And being in the boat's even more impressive. And the fun part is like, okay, you get ahead of another boat, and then that boat next to you who you got ahead will now initiate a power 10. And so there's a lot of back and forth. It's really fun. In our lives, we often get into a normal rhythm or cadence. And I've offered this advice to podcasters who, for example, podcast every single week, right? It's just the same cadence, same rhythm, but you almost kind of feel like you reach a ceiling of only what's possible by just continuing to stay at that rhythm. You need to initiate some sort of heightened moment of energy for a period of time that has an end time that will get you more results. In the world of coding, this is what we call a hackathon, right? A 24-hour hackathon. All right, coders, for the next 24 hours, you got unlimited pizza and Red Bulls, but like go invent your new thing, and then I'll see you tomorrow in 24 hours. And all the coolest inventions, creations, coding ideas come out in those hackathons. And we could do the same thing for our lives too. So for podcasters, for example, if you go every single week, your version of a power 10 might be, okay, for 1 week and 1 week only, instead of once a week, you're going to do it once a day. You'll have 7 days in a row of your podcast for just 1 week. Yes, it's more energy, it's more expenditure. However, you're going to get more results. You're going to get more downloads. You're going to get more call to actions. You're going to have the ability to promote this thing. You're going to hype it up. Your audience is going to share it. You get a lot more energy behind it, and you will see bigger results. So if you are at a point at all with any of the work that you're doing where you've hit a ceiling, a power 10 is a great way to break through that ceiling, right? That is something that can help you get there much, much faster, right? Um, Another concept in the book that seems to be one that resonates because I've done now 50 interviews on podcasts, and the book just launched today. This is what it's like to be an author and to market, right? Um, 50 interviews. Several of those interviews pointed out a strategy that I call a voluntary force function. And a voluntary force function is a way for you to, again, increase that pressure a little bit to get your butt off the ground and finally start doing stuff, because there is a deadline for something. There is a increased, heightened sense of pressure. Case in point, when I learned how to speak, I had been asked to speak many, many times on stage, and I always said no. Until my buddy Philip asked me, he started an event called FinCon, the Financial Blogger Conference, in 2011. And he had asked me to speak, and I knew that I wanted to speak. I knew it was going to be good for my career, but I always said no. I was always too afraid, and I didn't want to learn. And I said yes. And the moment I said yes, I was forced to then figure out how to do this, because 2 months from then, I had an event that I was going to speak at. Like, whether I was ready or not, I was going to go. This is a voluntary force function. I voluntarily put myself in that position to have that more drive. And also with that deadline, I couldn't possibly overlearn. So I had a contained amount of time to then find the right resources at the right time. I asked a few friends who had spoken before, and I said, if you only had 2 or 3 months to speak and you were a first-time speaker, what's the one resource that you would get access to right now to help you the most? And they all said the book to read was Dale Carnegie's Stand and Deliver. It wasn't to read every single book. It was just the one book, even though there were thousands. That helped out so much. And then I spoke on stage and I got better, and I started to what I call micromaster my way into getting to become a professional. I've since earned over 7 figures in speaker fees from speaking. Something I was, again, deathly afraid of before, but that force function. Another example of a force function in non-business related manner. Think about, so this is fishing. So there is a number of there's a million different things that you can do to catch fish, right? A million different baits. And there was one bait in particular called a jig. And when you jig fish, you can often get bigger fish. The setting of the hook where you pull the rod back is so much more exciting with a jig. A jig is a giant hook that has like a skirt, and you kind of use it a certain way. But it's very difficult to use. It's very difficult to learn. And every time I tied one on and I cast it out there, 15 minutes would go by. I wouldn't even get a bite. And I would just basically reel it in and go back to my old trusty drop shot rig, where then I would catch fish. And it would basically confirm that I was not a good jig fisherman, and I would go away from it, even though I really wanted to do it. Well, because I knew I really wanted this, I went out on the boat one day and I took nothing but jigs. There was literally no other option. I was forcing myself to do this. And same thing happened. I cast a jig out. 15, 30 minutes go by. I don't get a bite. I reel it in and I go, I'm going to change baits. Oh, wait, I can't. There's literally, like, what am I going to do? Go back home? No, I'm going to go fish. I might, like, a bad day of fishing is better than a good day at work, they say, right? So eventually, after several hours, I got my first bite. And then a couple hours after that, I got my first largemouth bass on a jig. And it was, in fact, a little bit bigger. And it was more exciting. And now that's my go-to lure when I go fishing, right? What was left out of the book that you wish you had more space to explore? Yeah, I will start answering questions for sure. Thank you again so much. If you had asked a question earlier, and I didn't get to it, ask it again. We don't have a super large crowd today because I was sick last week. I didn't have a ton of time to prepare all these things. There were so many more videos I wanted to create. There were so many more announcements that needed to be had, but I just needed to recover and get ready for today and make sure I was still there for my family as well. So you know what? It is what it is. You'll see a video from me a little bit later on social media about just sort of confessions of an author on his launch day, and that's one of those confessions. Is I wasn't able to do all the things I wanted to do, but I'm here with you now, and I'm excited. Grim asks, what was left out of the book? Let me see if I can pop this up on the screen. What was left out of the book that you wish you had more space to explore? Now, it's interesting. There were several stories that were removed from the book by the publisher. which I was not happy about at first. But in the end, it made the book a lot stronger. And, these people are experts. They have a lot of data. They have a lot of experience with this. This is my first time traditionally publishing a book. And so it was a lot of letting go of things. The cover wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be, but then I grew to like it. There were a lot of control things that I had to give up. And again, as somebody who has self-published 3 books prior to this, that was hard to do. That was hard to do. So there were some stories, even that story of fishing, I wanted to include in there, and that got removed. There were some other anecdotes and, more science-y type things that got removed too. I wish I could put more of that. However, I don't think that's my style. I was talking about this the other day with somebody. I very much admire other authors like Malcolm Gladwell, and so many others who write with a lot of studies and science behind it. And it's just like it helps a lot with the credibility. And a lot of my imposter syndrome started to come in when I started to read the book through after it was finished and go, wow, these are a lot of stories just about me. And maybe I'm biased because it's just me. And I'm like, this shouldn't be about me. But everybody who I've spoken to who has read the book feels like it's a breath of fresh air. At least that's what I've been told so far. And maybe these are just friends who have been really nice to me. But a lot of these books that are out that are talking about this kind of stuff are very scientific. And almost a lot of that stuff goes over a lot of people's heads. I wanted to take their approach purposefully to tell a lot more personal stories about the way that I've learned into different things, because I feel like that's more relatable. And that's more my style anyway. You see me show up in my full self, no matter where I am, either on SPI or on Pokemon or on shorts, longs, here, live, in the books. It's just me. And in fact, one thing I wanted to do here, Grim, I was pretty disappointed that they didn't let me put this in the book, even though I thought it was a genius move. And I'd love to know all of your thoughts about it. But in the beginning of the book, originally, I had written a letter to the reader. So it literally said a letter to the reader. Before you read this book, I just wanted to share these few things with you. One of those things that I wanted to share up front was the fact that I was not a professor at a university. I was not a PhD or a person who studied neuroscience and psychology or any of the stuff that most of those other authors have studied. I'm just a regular guy, but a regular guy who seems to get results much faster and more efficiently. So that was my positioning. And I thought that was really good because, again, it would also just really position me as somebody who's not like the others. But the feedback that I was getting was, oh, well, then like you're kind of already discrediting yourself right from the start. Like some people are going to come into this book expecting to be reading this book of that's not an entrepreneurial book. It's self-help and development. They're going to be expecting that there's some credentials there behind this. So don't call it out up front. I wanted to call it out up front. So there was a little push and pull with the publisher. Again, I very much appreciate all the work the publisher has done. I respect them. I love them. They've helped out so much. However, thanks, Gonzo. I think they were right. When it comes to selling books, especially to those who will find this at Barnes & Noble or Target or wherever and who don't know who I am, we don't want to start with, I'm not who you think I am, right? We want that to become apparent as you read the book. Like, oh, whoa, this person's just like me. And they have gone through a lot of the similar ups and downs in life. They've gone through trials and tribulations just like I am. So I think I agree with them in the end. However, that was hard for me to give up. But remember, they're a business, right? They need to move books, and they have data, they have science. I understand that, and so they have given into a lot of things that I asked for. But this was something that I had to give in for them. Vincent says, my son and I just filmed a trade with PokeRev. Big moment, nice. How do I learn less while I'm still learning enough to make that content hit and grow our mission? So, Vincent, the learning less really comes from understanding that although there are a million things to learn, what are the most important first things to learn about? It could be storytelling, it could be editing, whatever it might be. Focus on one for a certain period of time, knowing that when you need the next thing, that the resources will be there. Here's the trouble that most people go through, Vincent, and everybody else. This is somebody, these are people, most people, when they want to learn how to do something, will learn all about it. This is how we traditionally learn. We learn the whole thing, and then we take the test at the end of the class, right? At the end of the course. we read the whole book and then try to remember one or two things, right? Versus, like, let me tell you a story that is talked about in the book, but this is lean learning in real life happening. So when I got laid off, I was kind of lost, right? I had spent most of my life preparing to be an architect and then got it swept away from me. And then I discovered this world of online business. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I heard people did pretty well there. There were some people who were in industries similar to architecture who were making six figures a year. I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. I want to be an online entrepreneur too. My first inclination was to go to business school. Why was that the first thought? The most expensive, time intensive thing between me and starting to generate revenue. I was literally going to be spending money for what? Just to learn more? Well, number one, I didn't have the funds. And number two, I didn't have the time. I was moving back in with my parents. I didn't like that. I was starting a family. I didn't want to be at home with my parents. Starting a family, I needed to do this. So there was something at stake that was pushing me to take action in ways that I wouldn't have normally. I eventually found my way into a community and learned that with the small website that I had, helping architects pass an exam, that I could potentially publish an ebook. I didn't even know what an ebook was. And so again, my first inclination was to learn all about it, everything. How do you write an ebook? How do you format it? How do you sell it? What is copywriting? What are the best prices? I started to get absolutely overwhelmed. And that's what happens when you learn about all the things. I knew what I wanted to happen. I needed to generate revenue, and I had an audience, but I didn't know what to do. I needed to generate revenue. But I was overwhelming myself with the entire process of writing an ebook. But again, I didn't want to live at home, and I had to take some sort of action. So I knew that no matter what, I couldn't sell, write copy, or any of that stuff. But none of that stuff would have mattered anyway if I didn't have an ebook to begin with. So if this were easy, what would it look like? Well, I would just write this thing out on Microsoft Word because that's what I had access to. So that's what I did. I just started at the very first step. And I read a few columns, and I had watched a couple videos about how to best write an ebook in Word. Then it was done. In 3 weeks, I had 74 pages. That was the study guide. And I was starting to gain some momentum. I started to get motivated. Oh my gosh, like now I have a reason to keep going because this by itself, this digital file means nothing right now. So I need to format it to make it look good. That was the next step. I had never done that before. I'd never formatted a book. I don't work for a publisher, but I did find a couple of YouTube videos and a person who taught me how to turn it into a landscape format with 2 columns. And I did that in literally 2 days. I didn't need to go to school for that. I figured it out as I needed it. And then I needed to know, okay, well, now that I got this thing that's ready for sale, I need to get it in front of people. How do I even sell a digital product online? I had never done that before. And so I found a person who had sold digital products online. And I said, hey, what tool are you using? And he said, oh, I'm using a tool called eJunkie. That's it? Okay. I set that up in just a couple hours. I had a button that if people clicked on, they would get the book delivered to them via email, and I'd get money in my PayPal account. Great. But one problem. I've never written a sales page before. Do I go to copywriting school? Do I spend tens of thousands of dollars to be a copywriter? No. If this were easy, what would it look like? I would use a sales page that kind of already existed. And I asked a few people, and I found a book called Moonlighting on the Internet by Yannick Silver. And in the back of this book, this book is 200 something pages. There are 30 plus different ways in this book to make money online. eBay, whatever. So many different ways. I didn't need any of that. I just needed the appendix in the back of the book that had a Mad Lib style sales page that I can plug and play my own book, my own features and benefits of my book, my ebook, and use that. And that exact sales page had generated within 3 years over 7 figures. Not because I went to school, not because I figured out the entire process first and then took action. It's because I literally found the information that I needed just in time. The difference between just in case information, which is a waste of energy, time, it's pulling us away from the things we need to do, and just in time information. So that's lean learning as it's happening. Thank you, Abel, Natalie. I appreciate that. Thank you, Ronnie. That's amazing. Tech Faith Daily. I was recently laid off, feeling stuck, not sure what to learn or what to do next. So, first of all, I'm sorry that you got laid off, but also congratulations. That is the moment in my life that is probably then the most significant. Uh, Nothing that I do now would have happened if I wasn't laid off. So it was a huge moment for me to explore and see what else is out there. And that's what I would recommend for you. In your moment now, before you start implementing anything, you want to learn about who else is out there doing what and who is where maybe you want to be and what inspires you out there and where you have an energy or pull to lean into. And then you find a pathway through that. None of the other pathways matter, right? Maybe it's you get inspired to, I don't know, start a cooking YouTube channel. Great. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Facebook, copywriting, none of that stuff matters, even though it's out there and all those things could potentially help everybody. Let's master YouTube. Let's find the one resource for YouTube. Maybe it's following one literal YouTube creator who's teaching YouTube and just follow their process. You lean into that and you give it a period of time to experiment with, such that at the end of that time that you dedicate to it, you then can assess, but you give it your best and full shot, full attention during that time. This is what recently happened with my Shorts channel. So my Shorts channel is now 316 episodes into Should I Open It or Should I Keep It Sealed? If you've heard that before, you know what we're talking about. I open a pack of Pokemon daily. So started from scratch 316 days ago, a little bit over that because it took some time to find the right format. So I would say, still less than a year ago. And I said to myself, I'm going to do a 60-day daily video on YouTube opening a pack of Pokemon. Shout out to Alex Ketchum, or Alex Hodges, who is the one who inspired me to try this experiment. And I said, I'm going to go 60 days. Doesn't matter how many views I get. I'm going to go 60 days, and I'm just going to try to get better every single day. By day 30, my videos were only getting maybe 200 to 500 downloads per view, per download. Maybe one or two videos had 1,000, but it was nothing to write home about. And normally, that wouldn't be enough for me to go, yeah, this is going to work. I'm going to keep going with it. But you know what? I was only halfway through my experiment because it wasn't about the views. Don't count views. You count the reps. Right? As Alex says, count uploads, not likes, or count uploads, not views. Get the reps in. Now, even though I was at day 30 and I wasn't experiencing the views I wanted, I did experience something. My editing time for my videos went from 45 minutes down to 12 minutes. I was able to cut my editing time by almost 75% by simply just continually showing up. So even at the end of 60 days, if I stopped, I will have at least gained a new skill that would have helped me move into a new maybe arena or market or skills that I can then offer as a service to other people if I wanted to. I would have gotten that. I wouldn't have gotten that if I didn't, again, stick with it and get those reps in. I also was able to obtain 30 days worth of information, 30 days worth of data from YouTube from this experiment. That was very useful because it was information that was related to the thing that I was focusing on trying to get better every day. So I started to learn some interesting things. I started to learn that videos where I was interacting with people in person, generally speaking, performed a little better. Imagine trying to find patterns by just creating one video per month. You'd need several years to find the same amount of data versus by just going daily and getting messy and not worrying about being perfect. The constraint of the daily forced me to not over-edit. I had to get the minimum viable product out there. And that's what led to a lot of data. So being in person, videos performed a little bit better. I noticed that if there was a sticker, like a price gun sticker on the pack that I was opening, people were more likely to stick around in the first part of it. So it even got to the point where I went to stores that had packs for sale and I said, hey, do you have a price gun? Can you put a price on that before I buy it from you? And they're like, why? You already know the price. I'm like, it's for the video because I learned that they stick around. I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't stuck. And again, more data coming in. Day 35, a video pops and hits 750,000 views. And now this channel has 3 billion views across TikTok, Reels, and Shorts. It, in and of itself, is now generating ad revenue. It's creating opportunities that wouldn't have happened otherwise. It's crazy. And that happened all within a year. Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate that. My editing has also improved. Nice. That's great. Congrats on the release. Thank you, Brooks, so much. For anybody here who has yet to get the book, the best way to support would be to get the physical copy on Amazon. How are we 40 minutes into this call already? Have I really been talking for that long? That's insane, dude. Thank you for making it fun for me. This is so cool. Let's see, where was I? Yeah. Anyway. Yo, Jays, thank you. Thank you for last week as well. Wink, wink, if you know what I mean. I was at his booth at Frankenson. That's what that's about. Don't get any ideas. Let's see. What other questions can I lost the... There we go. Congrats on Lean Learning. Thank you, Nalnya. Eddie, getting the book delivered like right now. Amazon's one stop away. Nice, Eddie. I hope you enjoy it. I put a lot of personal stories into it. I, again, wanted to make it connect with you. The first story in the book actually is the story that sold the book. It's the story that that was the first thing written that was just a part of the proposal. When you create a book proposal, you just take one chapter and you share that out with different publishers, and that basically is like sales pitch for the book itself. And the first story in the book that you'll read is that story that sold it. And it ended up turning into a bidding war between various different publishers, which was really interesting. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, sure. Pay me more. But more than that, it was validation that the idea behind the book and the way that I write was valid. And it was really cool to see. Listening to Lean Learning now. Nice, Scoop. Thank you. And thank you for the interview as well. Looking for the video. Thank you. Yep. You should see it tonight. That's all I'm going to say. You'll see it tonight. Congrats on your book. Can't wait to start reading my copy when I get home. Thank you, G. Appreciate that. Kyle says, congratulations, Pat. Can't wait for mine to arrive. You're epic. Thank you so much for that. Grim had a question here earlier who said, how do you stay motivated when you're not seeing immediate results in a skill you're trying to learn? Because as we were talking about here with Alex, in his quote, count uploads, not likes or not views. That is the most motivating thing, getting to the end point. The goal is the thing that you can control. The goal is what you can control. The byproduct or the outcome is the possibility of the showing up and continuous, control that you have over that. It's hard, though. I mean, it's so much easier said than done. It's so hard when you're creating great things every day and you're not seeing things happen. But when we base our motivation entirely on whether or not an algorithm is happy that day or an audience whose reaction we normally cannot control when they say certain things, that's a very scary place to live, where validation only comes from the feedback of others that you cannot control. I'm not saying don't listen to those things, but you need to have motivation internally for things that you can control, right? Thank you so much, Dummy Daddy. That means a lot. Says, thank you, Pat. We buy because you've already given us so much value for free. Serve first. Indeed, serve first. The other motivation is often others that can come from elsewhere, like from other people. This is where the champions in your life, the peers and colleagues, come into play. I have been a part of 2 mastermind groups in the business world for over a decade each. And these are people who I trust just as much as I trust my family. They are people who know me often better than I know myself. They could see things. You cannot read the label when you're inside the bottle. So sometimes you need that outside perspective and help and encouragement. Accountability is key. And trying to find the small wins as well. A lot of times we base our mood and we base our mood, we base our success on whether or not we hit the end goal. But we have to then break these bigger goals down into smaller milestones that we can then celebrate along the way. A lot of us who are very motivated do not celebrate because we're already moving on to the next thing. And it's not, if it's not finished, like, it's not worth celebrating it, but it's important to celebrate. It's important to be proud of the work that you've gotten, even if you're not getting necessarily the quote unquote external validation that you want yet, you are at least showing up and getting those reps in, right? Thank you, Diane. I appreciate you for that. So yeah, the story in the beginning of the book, and then it's interesting because this is my fourth book. Each of my books tell my layoff story. It had become very apparent to me early on in my podcasting days, especially, that my entrepreneurial story, having gotten laid off from an architecture job, my dream job, was very inspirational to people, and very relatable in terms of like the why behind what I'm doing. I'm not doing this to try to get rich or anything. I was just doing this to survive. And then it turned into it eventually transitioned from survival to thrive, through the businesses that I created, which is really cool. But in this book, hold on, the dogs are barking. Amazon Prime is here. My son, we got some black tube socks and V-neck t-shirts for my son because that's what the band director said we needed to get before next season. Anyway, TMI. The way that I share my story in this book is different than the others because, and I'll just share with you some of the visuals that happen when I retell that story of getting laid off. And I end up telling you a little bit more about what's going through my head when no, the Pokemon cards came earlier, Aslan. They came earlier. I take you into my childhood bedroom as a 25-year-old man having just lost his job, moving back home with his parents, looking at my wall in my room of all the certificates and academic accolades, the awards, all of those things. And I looked at all that, and I was like, none of that mattered. I'm still back at home, 25 years old, feeling like a failure, despite all of those credentials. None of those things taught me how to deal with what I was dealing with. So there's a visual for you. Hey, Pat, got a hard copy off of Amazon, and we'll get an audiobook copy as well. Your voice is smooth and calming. Thank you, Kit. I appreciate that. The audiobook I'm very proud of. The audiobook does, in fact, go off script every once in a while. This is something that I learned from Gary Vaynerchuk. And I have a fun story to share about Gary in just a moment because I saw him recently and something funny happened. But Gary, in his first book, Crush It, in his audiobook, he would just kind of like go off script and go nuts, and he's got a lot of F-bombs and things that happen. There are none in my book. But I loved how he went off script. It was like, oh, wow, there's even more value in the audiobook because I can hear even more of his thoughts in real time. And I had done that in all of my books as well already. And I've gotten a lot of feedback. Obviously, I keep it family friendly, but it's fun to just in the moment when I'm in the recording studio, just go, you know what, I'm just going to tell this story. And so you'll hear some fun things related to that. Is the book worldwide? Yes. Audiobook is awesome. It's fun. And it was really easy to record. I've done it before. I was with the same audio engineer that I had always worked with my previous books. The only difference was there was a person from Simon & Schuster, one of the big New York publishers, there to listen and make sure it was good quality. And I got a really nice compliment from this nice gentleman who's worked with people like William Shatner and a few others for voiceover works and things like that. And he said this was probably the smoothest one he's ever done because we had very little retakes or anything like that. There was nothing to retake. Oh, Kathy, I took those out. That's so funny. So Ali Abdal apparently has a video out. I haven't seen it yet. But there's a chapter in the book where I talk about what my mentor said to me once when I was overlearning. I was taking too many notes. I was never taking any action. He basically, told me to effing stop. And I put that in the book. And then I started to think about the families listening to the book, having been family friendly for so long, especially on the audiobook. Like randomly, Pat Flynn says like this F bomb. And so I changed it. I changed it in the final book. Although I think there's going to be some argument that I should have kept it in there. So anyway, this is a little fun fact. The book is called Lean Learning: How to Achieve More by Learning Less, because there is so much information out there right now. And here's the thing: if information were the answer, we'd all be where we want to be. We have access to all of it. Yet many of us feel left behind or overwhelmed, confused. It's about finding the right information at the right time, leaning out like a diet, the things that you let in, the things that you do consume. But then when you do find that thing, you lean into it, right? You go deeper with it. R&D book was just delivered. Awesome. That's so cool. D-bombs. What's the D-bomb, Gonzo? Thank you, Kit. I appreciate that. I can only get audiobook. No worries. Maybe it will be available in other countries. I did get a deal in Japan. So as far as it being available in other languages, Japan is the only one so far, but the book has just come out. It was the first time I ever gotten a multilingual deal before a book launch, which was pretty cool. Yeah, so Gary V. I was in New York a couple weeks ago, and I was invited to go live with Gary V on Whatnot, TikTok, Reels, and a few other platforms all at the same time. He had a new set of cards come out for his V Friends. It was a Topps Chrome's V Sends set, and he wanted me to crack some packs with him. And I asked him, hey, I have a book coming out. Can I promote my book on your show when we open some packs together? He said, sure. So he was really kind. We spent about 25, 30 minutes together on his show. We talked about the book. He let me pitch it. He said everybody should buy it, which is cool. And I had prepared ahead of time. I had connected with my friends at the Poke Court, and I said, hey, Courtney, can you hook me up with 2 base set Pokemon booster packs? Because I want to pack battle Gary. I guarantee he'll want to do this. And she was like, okay, cool. So I bought them from her. And when there was a stopping point in the live stream, I said, hey, Gary, you want to crack a couple Pokemon packs together? Because we were cracking a lot of V Friends together at the time. And I said, hey, do you want to crack some Pokemon? And he's like, yeah, sure. What do you got? And I pull out 2 base set packs, both Blastoise artworks. And he was like, oh my gosh, stop, hold the phone. Like it was a big deal. It was really fun. And I was like, okay, let's open these, but why don't we place a bet? And he was like, okay, what? And I said, if I win this pack battle, meaning the card was more valuable in my pack versus his pack, and I let him pick, by the way, then I win. If I win, you have to buy 100 of my books. And he's like, okay, well, what do you have to do if I win? And I said, I will buy a case of your V Friends cards. So, I mean, we're talking like $3,500 on the line here, both ways. And we open the packs. He picks. I open a Blastoise, which is the second best card in the set. And all he could ever have to beat me to open was the Charizard. And he opened his pack and he had a Gyarados, which was not a Charizard. So Gary got a Gyarados, and so I won. And so he agreed. He was like, "Okay, sure. Like 100 books. How are we gonna manage collecting the names for this?" And I look at the live stream. I look at the camera and I say, "Hey, everybody! All you have to do is go to ibeatgaryv.com, and the first 100 people to put in their names are going to go get this book, thanks to Gary." And Gary and his entire team cracked up. They could not believe that I came prepared with a URL at ibeatgaryv.com. They were like, wow, that was a power move right there. And I was very proud of that. Now, if I had lost, that would have been just a $9 purchase. That would have gone to waste. But I won, and I was very lucky to have won. So that was fun. And he bought $100. He paid for him, which was great. Now, I did end up buying a case anyway, and I am pretty sure that even if I had lost, he would have bought in the books anyway, just because that's how Gary is too. So I might open a V Friends, yeah, on Short Pocket Monster. Cool. Let's see. I see a couple more questions. Steve says, you've scaled many things from scratch with our trade up journey gaining traction. How can I apply lean learning to bring on help? Build systems and scale without drowning in it all. Yeah, I mean, the trick is like, you don't have to do everything. There's a question that I had been inspired to put in the book from a friend of mine, Tim Ferriss. Many of you know him. He had helped me at a point where I was scaling things up and I was getting overwhelmed. And he said, if this were easy, what would it look like? And I have since then forever used that question to filter anything that I do or want to accomplish. I think about what I want the end goal to be, and I say, if this were easy, what would it look like? Well, in most cases, it wouldn't be trying to master 100 things. It would be maybe trying one or two things. Because the truth is, especially with the kind of thing you're doing, um, related to the trade up challenge and the kind of thing that you want to scale up, um, if it were easy to accomplish the goal, what would it be? It wouldn't be trying 100 different things. It might be more focusing on a couple higher leverage things. Like I know for things like this, it can just take one influencer to share something out that can really be a game changer, right? Um, and if you wanted to send me on Instagram a little bit more information or maybe a landing page or something like that, I might be able to help out with that. So send it to Deep Pocket Monster Official. I might be able to see what I can do there. Um, let's see. Have you considered how AI tools like ChatGPT can help with the learning process? Oh, absolutely. I like to use ChatGPT for two things. Number one, I like to use it as a creative partner. So when I'm coming up with ideas, I might share some ideas that I have with it and go, what ideas might I be missing? Or how might I expand on these ideas that I've given you, right? So these are ways that to use ChatGPT as a partner. I also like to use ChatGPT in role play. Um, and what I mean by that is I will ask it to be, for example, a reader of lean learning. This is what I did when the first manuscripts were done. I said, hey, ChatGPT, you are a person who does not know who Pat Flynn is, who is a reader of my book for the first time or any of my work. Please give me honest feedback about how you feel about this book in your journey of learning to start your own business or to learn a language or to whatever it might be. And again, the role play goes a very long way. It we will. That's right. If it if this were easy, what would it look like? It we will. That's the acronym to remember that. It we will. Hey Pat, congratulations. Thank you, Canada Cat, on your new book launch, and thank you for your inspiration to learn more. I just completed my digital marketing specialist training and internship last Friday, May 30th. Hey, congratulations, Canada Cat. That is an amazing accomplishment. The thing to think about would be what is the first of all, celebrate. And then, second of all, think about, okay, well, how can I, if this were easy, what would it look like to then apply that and start, whether it's in a job that you already have or to get a job or to start a business, whatever it might be, there may be an easy way to do something like that. I think I saw a question here. When you learn a new skill, when do you go about optimizing it? Or does it come naturally when you delve further into the subject? It comes from giving yourself time. So you'll see time spoken about a lot here in this book as far as time blocking, as far as giving yourself space around the thing and giving yourself a commitment of time like I did with my shorts channel for things to happen. Naturally, things will happen when you commit and you have that discipline. And the fact that you're creating these sort of micro experiments or tiny experiments, as Anne LeCouf calls it, means that they're not forever and they're there to learn something from. They're there to see a result one way or another so that you can learn from that and apply it to the next thing. And I love that analogy of a sort of tiny experiment. Um, you want to run like one of those at a time so that you do give those things the best chance, right? Um, within that time period, you find the one or two resources, the one or two people, and you then figure out, okay, here's a date where I'm going to start implementing some of this stuff. A lot of this stuff, again, is not new. Tim Ferriss is, again, I've mentioned him already. He's a big inspiration behind this methodology because he actually used to practice this. He taught it in the 4-Hour Work Week. I'm just creating an entire book around it, right? He had a show on Apple at one point. I don't know what happened with it, but for example, he was trying to learn how to speak Tagalog, the Filipino language. And, there's a million ways that you can learn it. You can learn it through Duolingo. You can learn it by reading. You can learn it whatever. But he wanted the fast track to do that. So what did he do? The first thing he did was he booked an interview with a Filipino news station that only spoke in Tagalog at a certain time period after that. So let's say a month. I can't remember the exact time frame. That is what is called a voluntary force function, and I talk about that in the book. So now he's got a deadline. He has motivation. He has a reason to learn now, but he also cannot overlearn. He also put himself in a situation to do nothing but learn, similar to the jig fishing analogy I used earlier. And he lived with a Filipino family for a couple weeks and only spoke Tagalog and only heard Tagalog and was able to easily pick up things, right? Like when you are there, you learn much faster, right? When it's being implemented, when it's being put into use. I used to be a flashcard learner, and every time I would be done with a test after it would just leave my brain. And I tried to use flashcards to learn how to speak Japanese when I was going to Japan for the first time in 2023, but it didn't work. Nothing was sticking. The combinations of words were just so foreign to me that I couldn't remember. However, once I got there and I started to learn as I was in a restaurant trying to be polite and ask how to order something, right? Or what I should say when I leave the building, arigatou gozaimasu, it stuck, right? It sticks when you put it into use in real time. Oh, Gonzo, yeah. This is about anti-champions, things people will say to try to bring you down on your learning journey. That's very important as well, which is, again, why it's important to surround yourself with people who will lift you up. Any launch day packs to open? You'll see some stuff opened on should I open it or should I keep it sealed today for sure. But tomorrow is the big Deep Pocket Monster live stream of the week since I pushed it from yesterday, since yesterday was the premiere of the new video, which is ranking number 13, trending on YouTube right now, which is awesome. How many hours a week do you work? Tim Ferriss recommends 4. He doesn't recommend 4. In fact, he's even said live in interviews and even on my very show that he wished he didn't name it that. I mean, it was a very viral name, right? Almost clickbaity. I mean, literally. But it's more the idea of no longer trading your time for dollars, but investing time up front to then continue to work for you, right? This is the 4-hour work week principle. Anyway, the 4-hour work week is very, very sticky as a concept, but it's not actually 4 hours a week. So in terms of hours per week, it varies because work is never a constant, especially as an entrepreneur. There are seasons like the season of right now in the middle of a book launch and planning an event and managing a community and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot going on right now. So maybe working probably about 40 hours a week, to be honest, at this point. But midsummer, once these things die down and I end this season of what I'm promoting and what I'm focused on, I mean, there's going to be weeks. There will literally be a week where I do 0 hours of work because I'll be on a cruise with my family and I'm all in with them. There will be weeks where I work maybe 1 or 2 hours a day. There will be weeks where half the week will be 1 or 2 hours a day and other days will be 12 hours a day because something is happening the next day, right? All right, chat. Well, we are already at the end of the hour, which is incredible. So I just wanted to take this moment to thank you again for being here and watching this and being a part of the celebration with me. Again, I wish I had more time to prepare. And, this was something that popped up literally an hour and a half ago. And we still have, we've had 500 people come by already, which is amazing. So thank you so much for that. If you have yet to get your copy of Lean Learning, check it out on Amazon. Amazon would be the best place to get it. And getting the physical copy is the best way to help support the launch. And we'll see. I'm starting a countdown today till next week to see whether or not we hit a list or not. And yes, Sarah, it will be available, or it is available at Barnes & Noble for sure. Benson. Oh, no. Yes, I'm sorry. Not sure if you answer. Yeah, it will be available at Barnes & Noble. Would you ever try to do a collab with Ray Dalio? I love his books. him and uh, why am I? Malcolm Gladwell are two authors who I really admire. And when I wrote my book, Will It Fly in 2015, I got into a little bit of trouble. Not any legal trouble or anything like that, but I was reading so much Malcolm Gladwell that I started to write like Malcolm Gladwell, and it was hard. And I eventually found that that's not how I write. I was just influenced by what I was consuming again to go along with the lean learning. I was consuming those because it feels good to learn. It feels like you're making progress when you're learning about a bunch of different things. But unless you are going to be a contestant on Jeopardy, knowing a bunch of things about a bunch of things is not going to be valuable anymore. It is about finding the right information at the right time, because the truth is, information no longer is valuable. Just knowing the things is not going to get you anywhere. You have to implement, you have to learn, you have to do, put yourself into it as a creator, and connect with other people. So anyway, thank you again for all the support. I appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you in the future and serving you continually. So thank you so much for the support. Take care, everybody. Thanks for celebrating with me today.